Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Last year, we spoke about different topics for relationships on how to have a good, strong, healthy relationship and what you need to do from the values that you have or that you need for the relationship to work, with the number 7 out of 10 minimum, to just having communication and learning how to communicate with your partner. The past episode, we talked about why relationships fail and how to make one last. And of course, you can always go back to that episode to learn the ins and outs of what we talked about. But I wanted to bring back this idea of values because it is so important when we are doing all the things we're doing. Because if you have strong values and you're looking for a person that has strong values, the way you communicate or the way you approach the relationship is going to be different than if you didn't do the value work. Then if you just walked into the relationship and expected something rather than did the work and expected what the effort you put in was. Because if you went to school, for example, right? This is a very simple analogy, is you went to school and you had a test, and on the test, there was 10 multiple choice, but you didn't circle any of the answers. You just went to school, you put your name in the paper, and when you got your test back, you got a 0. Well, why did you not get 100? Because you didn't have any level of action. You didn't do the work to figure out, is it A, is it B, is it C, is it D? You might not even read the questions. And of course, this could be an act of rebellion. This could be that maybe you didn't study and you didn't want to just put things haphazardly. But then again, maybe some risk at that point would be better than no risk. So why in the world would you leave everything blank? And this idea or this mindset is the same thing is true of why would you not fill in the values that are most important to you? Why would you just allow yourself to haphazardly go into life or into a relationship without truly understanding your values? So at some point, you have to sit down with yourself and understand your values. Now, when we talked about like values, right, we can talk about values alignment. Where are our values aligning with someone else? Because you can have a value of fitness, you can have a value of family, you can have a value of religion or faith. So these values are important to you, and you want these things to be present in your partner to some degree, because maybe they are religious. And I know this is a big topic with people today because Christianity, or just the idea of religion and faith, is up damn near 50% right now. So people are starting to become more spiritual. There is a movement for that. And I'm not here to say that you need to be a part of that movement. I'm not even here to say that it is necessary in order for your growth. I believe what you need is what you need to do. And you might ask, well, what do I need to do, Michael? Right? Like, it's not common sense. If you slow down for a minute and you truly ask yourself, what do I need right now? You will start to give yourself some questions or maybe some answers. Because if you were hungry, you might say, well, I'm hungry. Well, what do you want to eat? You might say, well, I want to have some tacos. Okay. What type of tacos? Do you want seafood tacos? Do you want like carne tacos? Do you want like Taco Bell? Like, we can go down the list of all the possible tacos you can have. But maybe I say, well, we can't get tacos. We can only get burritos. Will that scratch your itch if you had a burrito instead of a taco? Maybe for some. But let's start to go 360, or not 360, but 180. Instead of having tacos or burritos, you're going to have pizza. You're going to have Italian food. So you're not having Mexican food anymore. You're having Italian food. And now you might say, well, I didn't want pizza today. It's the same as if you have a value or if you have a need and you're not taking care of that need, or if you're not truly trying to live within that value. Because if you have a value of fitness and you have not been showing up to the gym, imagine how that value is not there in your life anymore. Sure, yeah, you can get rid of a value if it no longer serves you. But typically, the values that you give yourself are long term. They're going to be there for a period of time. And it's not going to just be for a month, a year. Typically, it's going to be for a lifetime, right? You give yourself this idea of health, right? A value of being healthy. It's not like I'm going to be healthy for a season. I know some people, they try to give themselves better values, but those values are not fully implemented. They're just a nice idea to have. So these values that you're trying to align with are not there fully. And so what happens in a relationship is if I try to give someone a value, right? Or I want someone to step into a value, maybe I want someone to go to the church with me, right? So I'm like, hey, I want you to go to church with me. I want you to do Bible study with me. And I remember I had this girlfriend in college. She was a nurse and she was super religious. Like she was all about religion. And mind you, I'm Catholic. So I would go to church every Sunday. And one of the requests that she had was she wanted someone to go to church with. I was like, I go to church anyway. But then she wanted someone to do Bible study with. And I'm like, well, I don't do Bible study. And one of the things I didn't want to do at the time was devote any more time to my religious practices than I was already doing. So for her, it was like, this is a value of mine where I want someone to do the things that I want to do, and you don't want to do those things. And it was so important to her where it wasn't going to work in the relationships, even though we had great chemistry. The romance was there, the fire was there, the sparks were there, everything was there, right? We could have had a great relationship. But the fact that one of the values wasn't missing, I say that you need 7 out of 10 values, even though we might have had 9 out of 10 values. The most important value for her was she wanted someone to go to church with. She wanted someone to do Bible study with. She wanted someone like that. And I didn't have it, right? I didn't want to give it. And I mean, I don't even regret it to this day. Like, oh man, I wish I went to Bible study with her. Like, I don't live like that. I knew what I wanted. I knew what my values were. She knew what her values were. And they just weren't in alignment. So yeah, sure, you can have a bunch of values and you can have a good, strong relationship, but then you have some important ones. Now, when we look at our past, we might look at some areas where things have worked and where things have not worked. Because I think what had happened, looking at that relationship as an example, was she probably had a relationship where that person or a person says, I don't want to have this type of relationship with God or religion or going to Bible studies. She didn't maybe have a good experience with that. And maybe I didn't have an experience with doing it to realize if maybe I would like it or not. So the fact that I had something from my past, whether it be a wound or it be something that I had no inclination to or experience with, caused a void. So what happens in that situation is that it steers the decision or it steers the choice from what the person is thinking or what the person will do. Because yes, like I said, you can have all the values, everything can be there, but then one thing can set that person off. There was a movie, I forget the name of it, but they had very much the same type of chemistry. Everything was good. The relationship was good. The sex was good. They had decent communication. But then there was a moment when that girl needed him. Her father had died or her mother had died. And she was calling this gentleman and he just wouldn't answer because he just didn't want to attach to her like that with this emotion, right? With the death of family member and then being there for her at that time. So he distanced himself and she realized that that had happened. And of course, down the road, some months later, weeks later, they met and he apologized for what had happened. And you would think in a movie, right? In a movie that she would say, I forgive you, and that she would take him back. Well, not in this movie. This movie was when I needed you the most, you weren't there. That was a value of hers, to have someone that she could rely on. So even though they had all of these good things and maybe, again, 9 out of 10 values, that one value of them not being there, that betrayal, was enough to make the relationship not work. Now, all of this is to say that in a relationship, I wish there was a manual where you have an understanding of the person that you're going to be with or understand, or maybe even yourself. So you can say, okay, I know how this is going to work. I know how to operate. Oftentimes we go in blind. We go in with an idea of what we had or what we know, and that is it. And we basically are in a discovery phase or mode for a period of time in the relationship. So we learn about our person, we learn about their values, we learn about what makes them tick, we learn about maybe their past or their baggage or their dirty laundry, and either we accept it or we don't. Now, sometimes people have a past where they might have healed from, but for someone else, they might see that past as unrecoverable from. Now, one of the examples, and this is very like red pill, I guess, would be if a woman has had multiple sexual partners. And let's say she had 20. 20 is a good amount, right? 20 sexual partners. And maybe the guy was, again, religious and he was waiting for marriage. And maybe he found someone and he has one sexual partner, right? Where now he's learning about this woman. He finds out that she has 20 sexual partners. And he's like, oh, well, even though you are a changed person and you gave your life to the Lord or Christ or Jesus, it's just not going to work, right? We can say, well, why is it not going to work, right? Now we're getting into the argument between the red and the blue pill is why is it not going to work? Why can't we just forgive her? The past is the past. Well, let's say that if someone was a sex offender and now they wanted to be a teacher, right? They wanted to be a teacher. They're a changed person, right? They went to rehab and they are going to church and they did all the things that are going to make them a viable member of society now. They can't, right? Because of that tarnish on their record or that thing on their record. And most parents, I think, would agree that if you are a sex offender, if you're on one of the registries, that we don't want you in the schools teaching our children. Okay. It's nothing against that person. It's just a bias that is created. So this bias is going to be present in all we are as humans because it's easy for us to have a prejudice. Think of if a Black person walks by your door and you're in this neighborhood that's very nice, and you're like, okay, well, what is this person doing here? And they lock the doors, right? Or something along those lines. Or if you're on your phone and you see someone and you're at the gas station, of course, situational awareness is important to have. But then when you mix it with prejudice, what do we got here now, right? We have a recipe for basically distrusting a group of people or just maybe a moment in your life. Now, I say all this to not start a fight or to start problems. I say all this to help people understand that we can have different things for ourselves, meaning we can have a value for something and we can think in one way or one light, and we can hope that people also think in the same light as we do. And what's happening in our world today, I'm just going to be open about it, is that people are not looking at other people who have differences and saying, hey, let me befriend them and let me understand them. We're looking more at, I'm just looking for people who are like me. So you are looking for people who will go to the gym with you. So you go to the gym, you see somebody, oh, look, you're going to the gym. Maybe you go to church. Oh, look, you go to church. And so you look at some of these main factors for what you're doing in your life. This is basically how you make a choice. Well, let me tell you some of my main factors when I was growing. So I was a hiker. I was a teacher. So if I had all of these things, right? So if I was a hiker, I should find someone who's a hiker as well. Well, now I don't do as much hiking. I'm busy. I'm living in a different region where the hiking is not as great as Connecticut or of where I used to hike. So I can complain about the hiking and just not do it. And then so right there, I already said that the person I was going to be with is a hiker. And now I'm not a hiker. One of our connection pieces has been lost. Well, Now, let's say I'm a teacher, right? You're a teacher too. I'm a teacher, right? We have something in common. Well, I'm no longer a teacher and you're still a teacher. And maybe the connection is lost, even though I know many teachers who don't have husbands or wives that are teachers. All right. But, just for the sake of an understanding, there's a loss in what we once knew, right? Teacher and teacher. Now, maybe I'm a dog person and I have all of these dogs, and now I don't have any more dogs, and they all passed away, and I don't want any more dogs because the heartbreak of losing a dog is like, it hurts. So you're like, I don't want any more dogs. And so what connected you with this person you met at the dog park, and now you don't want to have any more dogs? It's like, well, where's our connection? We can't have any dogs. And this is not to say that everything is one-sided where it has to be my way, but I'm just trying to help people understand in a very blunt way of how people can think. They think of it as, there's a wall here, I can't get over it. Well, why not climb over the wall? Why not walk around the wall somehow? Why not get a sledgehammer and break through the wall, right? There's obstacles we have in life, and there's ways that we can get through those obstacles, right? We talked about it. And now when we're looking at this idea of like our relationships, right? How will we make them work? What do we need to do in the relationships? There's just so many factors where people, they hit that wall and they say, you know what? Not going to work. All right. Our values at once they aligned, not anymore. Right. Oh, I found something out about you. I'm not vibing with that. See you later. Right. I can't tell you how many times I've been in relationships, and like, this is like in the dating phase where I learned something about someone and I go, you know what? I know long term that's not going to be helpful or beneficial in the relationship, right? For me, at least. And so we decided to part ways. And I know people have done that for or to me. I remember there was one girl I was dating, just moved to Texas. And it was funny because I had a lot of ideas in my mind, right? This was in my personal development phase when I moved to Texas, where I had a lot of moving pieces. And I'm a big believer in not telling people what you're going to do before you do it. Okay. Because if I have a Fortune 500 company under my belt, it is under my belt, and you're not going to know until it's public and it's worth $100, $200 a share already. All right. You're not going to get in before, like, when the coming is good, right? You're not going to be that initial investor. I'm just going to do it. And you're just going to be like, whoa, he did that. Yeah. It happened as a surprise, right? Don't tell people what you're going to do before you do it. Well, I didn't tell this girl what I was doing, right? And she had goals in life, and she wanted to make sure that I had goals in life. And I was just doing regular sales work, and I was just say, yeah, I'm just doing sales work and finance work, and I'm okay with it. And she was like, you don't want anything else in life? Like, you don't have any dreams? You don't have any bigger endeavors than what you're doing right now? I go, no, I'm good. I'm having a good time right now. And mind you, again, I had all of these plans for what I was going to do from the business. I didn't know I was going to have a podcast yet, but maybe at some point I kind of knew I was going to be doing something along these lines. And I just didn't tell her. And so what she was feeling was, I'm more interested in your future than I am of your present, because we were interesting people. We had good conversations. We had a lot of alignment in our values, and it was something that could have worked, but it didn't work because, again, there was just that mismatch of communication of, I'm not telling you everything, and maybe she wasn't telling me everything. This is perfectly fine in the dating world because you're trying to figure out a person. Sometimes you date a person who just got out of a relationship and they have a lot of baggage. So it doesn't matter if all of their values are in alignment with what you are or what you're doing. I remember there's one girl, she was a very pretty girl. She was 324. She just got out of a long-term relationship with like her high school sweetheart. And we had a lot in common. Again, very pretty girl. She had a lot of things going for her. I had a lot of things going for me. I don't know where I was at the time. I think the business I think the business might have been started and it was doing well. And so it was easy for me to say, okay, I know what I want. I know what I need to do. And I saw in her that she was just not over that relationship. And even though I could have had a relationship with her, even though we probably could have made a connection and made it work, you can see that baggage or that lingering that she had from the previous relationship, from the other man. And so I knew that that would be some level of downfall later on. Now, of course, she could have transitioned and just been all about me and forgot about that person. But typically, when you have a long relationship with someone like she has had, it's going to be hard to forget about that. And I think of what would have happened if maybe we ever had an argument, right? This person never argued with me before. This person did this and that. And so there would have been a lot of comparison versus looking at your person for who they are rather than what you know from someone else. And this is often a problem in relationships because we know how we can treat ourselves. We know how other people might have been treating us. And so there's just so many factors to what makes a relationship a relationship. The good, the bad, and the ugly are all there. We can look at the values, we can look at the alignment, we can look at the baggage, we can look at the problems coming, but there's just so many gray areas that happen in relationships where people are more interested in just having flings today, where it is easier just to have relations with someone, sexual relations with someone, than to have commitment with someone. And we have to ask ourselves, well, how do we get here? And the whole idea of the movements that have been happening from women empowerment to basically men understanding that they don't have to get down on one knee to get sex anymore. All of this has driven no communication, has triggered the misalignment of values, has triggered ways to game the system of relationships. And before you know it, you're in a relationship that's not good for you, or you are in something that's not a relationship. So you are in a situationship is what they call it. You're in a situation thinking you're going to be in a relationship. And this can happen both ways. It can happen to the guy, to the girl, or the girl to the guy. So depending on where you are, you can look at your values. You can look at your alignment with someone. You can look at if they're ready for a relationship. You can look at their baggage. You can look at their past. And all of this is to say that when you're dating, especially in the dating phase, you figure out if a person is for you. And it is okay 100% to realize that a person is not for you. But one of the things you don't want to do is to know that a person is not for you and to say, you know what? Maybe I'll stay with this person because I would rather be with someone than no one. I would rather be with the wrong person than being alone. So it's like we know what's good for us. We know what we should avoid, but most people, they're running to the fire, they're running to the flames, and they're wondering why they're getting burned. So this is a chance for people to realize if they are, whether they're in a relationship and maybe there's no commitment or there's not full commitment in the relationship. Maybe a person is starting off in the relationship world and they're looking for something bigger than what they've had in the past. This is something where they have to do a full mindset dive in. And one of the things we do here at Reven Concepts is we help people understand not only themselves, their values, their past, but then how to find someone who can accept everything that they are and everything that they will be. And then that person has to understand that that person is going to come with the same flaws and maybe with some of the same perks or some different perks or some different benefits. So we have to look at everything. It's almost like a scale where we figure out what's good, what's bad, what can you give, where is some leeway, where do we have to leverage something from somewhere else? And then from there, the mindset journey begins on your relationship journey, on your relationship growth. It's not going to be always butterflies and rainbows. Some days it's going to be hard. Some days you're going to ask, why should I even continue? Why should I even bother? And to stand the test of time, it requires a person who understands themselves and who understands the relationship that they're trying to be in. So if you do the work today, you're going to find something that's more than just a moment. You're going to find something that can be for a lifetime. There are so many skills and so many factors that need to be implemented before this relationship even occurs. or proceeds, we have already talked about it in some of the previous episodes. So stay tuned this month, especially if you are hungry for enhancing your relationship or starting anew.